Hey there, welcome back to Climate Fridays, an amazing initiative that takes on the intersections of First Nations, school strikers, and the music scene here in Oz. This week is an extremely special week. It's NAIDOC week, and the theme for this year is Always Was, Always Will Be, celebrating the oldest culture on this planet Earth and the richness and that they bring to this country. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we all live and work, and their continuing connection to land, water, and culture, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Ketchi Anelli is my name, and I'm so excited for this week's talk. We're seeing a return of a few of our favourites here on Climate Fridays to continue that discussion about environmentalism in Australia, our future and the direction we'd like to take on it, as well as see what's happening and different things that we can jump on board to help our future and the future of this beautiful land in which we all live and occupy. So let's get started. Tonight, performing for us first is a very dear friend of mine. In fact, somebody who I toured for the very first time with as an emerging artist. His name is Benny Walker, and I'm so excited to welcome him to Climate Fridays. Benny, how are you doing?
I'm good, Ketchi. How are you?
Extremely, extremely happy to have you here for Climate Fridays. Love to know what you've been up to during 2020.
Yeah, it's as everyone knows, been a bit of a different year. I haven't been able to tour much. I've done a couple of live streams, but in the meantime, my brother and I, we have a business that is Indigenous employment consultancy. So we basically help people from unemployment, help them upskill if need be. And then we have a bunch of different fantastic employers that we work with. We help them into employment and then give them post-placement mentoring and support. And in that, we've got a health and wellbeing program that is a big part of what we do. So for us, it's all about that continuity of care and basically just trying to do our part to impact positively on the lives of people that may have had a bit of a tougher start than some of us, especially myself. I was lucky enough to, grow up middle class and be able to chase my dreams playing guitar and singing. So, and my brother got to play AFL footy, and our sister got to, go and start her own businesses. And yeah, we're just trying to now get a generation of people to where our parents were, so that their children can then have the opportunity that we had.
Can I ask you, this is NAIDOC week, and this week is kind of a celebration of First Nations people. The theme of this year is Always Was, Always Will Be. What does it mean for you to celebrate NAIDOC week, if you do celebrate it? And the theme, Always Was, Always Will Be, is a thing that's really taken a stronghold when it comes to talking about First Nations. I just wanted to know what your opinion was as someone a part of that community.
Yeah, so I suppose in two parts. I do celebrate NAIDOC week, and we have been celebrating it. At our ATB, we called ATB Walker Group. But yeah, we've been celebrating all week, and the small wins, and just being able to also share our culture with some of the other businesses we're partnered with. We've been jumping on Zooms and having great chats and opening the space up for them to feel safe to ask questions and things like that. But also, we want to share our culture. It's as you mentioned in your intro, it's the oldest culture in the world, and we're excited about that, and the rest of the wider community should be excited about that. And I hope inquisitive about it and curious about it. And we try to create a space where people feel that there might have been something they wanted to ask and didn't know they were going to be judged for the question. But I think one of the biggest things we can do in fighting racism is take the fear away and remove ignorance by just having a conversation. So we try. That's a big part of what we do as well.
Yeah.
The theme that you're talking about is I live on country. So I'm a Yorta Yorta man. I'm lucky enough to have grown up here. I moved away for a while, but I've been back here for over 10 years now. And it's a funny one because I'm in Echuca, Moama. It's a real tourist town. So I'm very protective of where I come from, being that we have so many people here. And, you know, I'm reminded on just about a daily basis that this is our land and how close I actually feel to it. You know, I can walk out of my backyard and think that one of my ancestors probably walked through here thousands of years ago, you know, hunting and gathering. And, you know, there's that right through to even more recently, you know, my own grandfather and the influence he had on me in our community, and just trying to, I suppose, walk in his footsteps as best as I can and take lead from my ancestors, and hopefully, as I said before, affect positive change. And I think the conversations that come in these weeks, it's great to have them in this week, but it'd be great if they could be continued just as strongly week in, week out, because anyone has seen how often these things, you know, are celebrated for a week, and it can be a little bit of a box tick, which I'm very anti that. You know, as we've ticked off the blackfellas for the year and on we go. I just think if we can continuing that conversation throughout the year, and I think we're doing a better job, and we're getting our voices are being raised up, and people are being really proactive. And I think, as I said, it's an education thing, and it's a breaking down barriers and walls and creating discussions and just putting more love in the world so that people are more understanding of one another and want to learn about each other.
Yeah. I think like a point that you and I both have in common is that we come from cultures that have songlines and ways of talking about their history. And this year you also released your album Chosen Line. I was wondering, what were your inspirations with this album, and are we going to hear a track off this album tonight?
Yeah, you will hear a track off a couple off the album. The inspiration was this, as usual for me, is just day-to-day life. I know that sounds a little mundane, but, you know, we all meet so many interesting people. I'm lucky enough too, and I have enough interesting experiences to be able to write it out. And as like the title track is probably the one I think you're probably alluding to, and that is just speaking to the fact that, you know, I didn't exactly fall into this, and I've spoken about this and said that it could have been called The Unchosen Line, because I was, you know, both my grandfathers were musicians, my dad, a lot of my family was, and there was nothing else I could really think to do with my life in my, you know, after leaving school, even during school, like there's nothing else I wanted to do. So I really didn't choose music, it kind of chose me, and I've just sort of grabbed it and embraced it and tried to make of it what I can, and this is where it's got me to so far.
Well, we're so much luckier for it. Benny Walker, you're going to open up this discussion and serenade us with your beautiful music on Climate Fridays. So I'm going to let you do what you do best and enjoy it.
Thanks, Kedge. This is a song called Money and Fools. What good is a man who ain't got no plan? Happy just living with a bird in his hand. Doesn't he know about the two in the bush? Maybe he's heard about money and fools. Hasn't he heard of all the things that could be? I'm sure if he had, then he would surely agree. Sell your soul and you could take a look into a world full of money and fools. Money and fools ain't got no time. Money and fools will bleed you dry. You don't need to pay no mind. You'll money, money and fools. So when the big one line sinker enough, of a pen that was all that it took. Sending a soul and you could take a look into a world full of money. Take all the sadness the money can buy. Save it all up until the day that you die. Maybe then you'll get a private room, free from a world filled with money and fools. Money and fools ain't got no time. Money and fools will bleed you dry. You don't need to pay no mind. You'll find the money, money and fools. It was the devil, as sure as you know, left him for dead and now he's out on his own. It's hard to win when they keep changing the rules. It's the story about money and fools. Money and fools ain't got no time. Money and fools will bleed you dry. You don't need to pay no mind. You'll find the money, money and fools.
That is so beautiful. What an amazing track. Thank you so much, Benny Walker, who's playing that from Yorta Yorta country, Echuca. I also want to acknowledge that I am on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country in the Kulin Nations. That is such a beautiful track. And I think one of the things that also ties, I guess, country and the conversation that we're about to have today on Climate Fridays, Yorta Yorta translates to Meeting of the Waters, which I think is such a beautiful, like poetic name for land, and a really great place to kick off this discussion that we have here on Climate Fridays. I'm going to bring to the forefront one of my favorite people in the world. She's probably very sick of me. She's from Seed, and we've had her a few times on Climate Fridays, telling us what is up, what is happening, what action we need to take. It's the wonderful and phenomenal Tish King.
Hello, Kappa Kut, everyone. Oh my gosh, Ketchy, you just make my heart melt a little bit. I feel like Climate Fridays is ready to be like, okay, seriously, does anyone have, can anyone else from Seed come on?
No, I'm obsessed, Tish. I always get excited to have you here because I feel like we have really great and strong conversations. And as someone who is like an occupier of stolen land, I feel very humbled to be allowed to be involved in these conversations and find out where and what I can do to show my allyship with First Nations across the country. So thank you so much for joining us. Please tell me where you are, what you're doing, what is happening, because I'm so excited for you to tell us.
Yes, because I think last time I was on, I was in quarantine. So
yes.
I'm super excited. So actually, for those who are new here on Climate Fridays, my name is Tish King, and I am a proud Torres Strait Islander woman with strong connections to Musik and Badu Island. And I would like to acknowledge country, knowing that we are tuning in from different places. Where I am, I would like to acknowledge the traditional people of the Angamuthi country, which is in the Northern Peninsula area of Australia. And I would like to pay my respects to those elders past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded as well. And I would like to acknowledge Betty, my brother from another mother there, who, is Aboriginal, has popped off there for a little bit. Yorta Yorta man. And, great to be actually connected to, both you and just real, like, from really cultural strong backgrounds, especially through a week where here in NAIDOC, we're celebrating, our First Nations cultures, traditions, our songlines, and just be, celebrating the rich diversity of the different sort of Aboriginal nations and countries and different Torres Strait Island groups. So
Yeah.
It's so great. And I am a community organizer at Seed. And for those who actually too don't know who Seed are, since 2014, we've been really building, a movement of young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people to protect their land, rivers, and oceans from the causes and impacts of climate change, which kind of it really just resonates and a good reflection on this week's, message, always was and always will be. So no, it's so good.
No, so good to have you, and happy NAIDOC week. How have you been celebrating this week of culture and knowledge?
It's actually like I really actually want to say I'm really grateful for the space that I am. While it's not my my country, I'm actually here with my ama, which is my mum, and she's been up here on Angamuthi country for the last 20 years, and just to be out of Nam, but reconnecting on country and just being able to be outside without a mask on in the fresh air.
Yeah.
It's really appreciating our natural beauty and diverse country. I think it's been a big reflection for all of us of 2020. And so for me, I've been eating good island food, celebrating with my uckers and uthers, there's continuing to share stories and, talking about like what Betty was saying, we are the longest surviving, culture in the world. And this is how we've survived. We share those stories, we listen and we learn, and we pass it down to the next generation. And so it's just been, for me, I've just been like out in the sunshine, getting sunburned, getting that salty air in my face, going fishing tomorrow. And I'm like, yes.
An interesting point that you brought up is passing those messages on to the younger generation. And we're seeing that the way that Australians and the new generation of like Australian people are learning about the true history of this land. And in saying that, I'd love to bring forward Anne Sharma from School Striker for Climate, an amazing speaker who blew us away last season when we had amazing conversations about activism and environmentalism. And so it is so great to have you back.
Hey, I'm so happy to be back. I love the conversations we have here. I love Tish's energy, and Benny's music was amazing. So I'm super happy to be back.
Yeah. And before we're talking about NAIDOC week and what we've seen this week, and I think it's something that we all really want to talk about, I just want to open this up in the broadest terms. We're seeing beautiful celebrations across many different platforms online. Like I personally have seen it through TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and so many more platforms. These great celebrations, sharing of knowledge, and as well in allyship, taking on that weight of actually actively trying to educate ourselves without having to lean on First Nations people. But there's also been other things happening, and kind of disappointing things happening in our government in the way that they are demonstrating their respect and understanding for First Nations people. Just wanted to open it up to everyone. So if anyone would like to kind of come forward with this conversation and we can get things rolling.
Something I was really annoyed to hear this week was I heard the story about how the Liberal Party and One Nation voted against flying the Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander flags in Parliament. And I honestly think that flying the flags is the bare minimum you can do for NAIDOC week, and it shouldn't just be for NAIDOC week. Those flags should be flown all year round. But the fact that they couldn't, acknowledge that it's NAIDOC week, it's such an important week for First Nations people, they couldn't do the bare minimum and fly the flag in Parliament was honestly really disappointing to hear. And that's me. I'm not a First Nations person in any way, so my disappointment cannot compare to the disappointment of the betrayal that First Nations people must have felt. But yeah, that's how I felt this week.
Yeah, Tish, Benny, did you want to talk about this point?
Yeah, briefly. I found it as frustrating as anyone, to say the least. But I think it just, without getting too negative, it speaks to the fact that we probably can't rely on politicians to lead from the front or necessarily be the voice of the people they represent, because I think the majority of Australians, I'd like to think, and majority of people in the world would have just agreed it was a no-brainer, especially during NAIDOC week. But as Ange said, it should be something that's done year-round. Anyway, I'm not a fan of flags as it is. I just think flags cause divisiveness as it is. I'm a bit funny with flags, especially growing up in a country where flags are used as symbolism sometimes for things that I'm very, very against. But if they're going to be used, if they're going to put the Australian one up, what about the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ones? Like, as Ange said, it shouldn't even be a conversation that needs to be had. It's just flabbergasted.
Yeah. Tish, can I ask you, how did you feel about this situation? And also Lydia Thorpe, who is a Gunai Gujimara woman in the Greens Party, speaking up and giving voice to the First Nations rebuttal, I guess, and also providing, what we call in modern day receipts as to why this was such a disgraceful act by the Australian Parliament.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know what? Firstly, I have so much respect for Lydia Thorpe, a strong Black woman at the front. Yes, please. We need more like her. And I think that's what she did was to stand up and voice this was incredible, especially in a room full of, excuse my language, but all white men. And so, but I really agree with, I really actually mirror what Brother Benny there says, not a big fan of flags. And it does come back down to it should be a no-brainer, really. But it's just in this week where we should be really celebrating our culture and the rich, diverse history of First Nations people is a really kick in the guts and really disrespectful to all First Nations people across our nation. I mean, to have that in at the beginning of NAIDOC week, I don't know if everyone remembers what happened in Reconciliation Week this year. We had George Floyd just, kick off this international movement. So it's time and time again, we are seeing, oppression brought down from, this systemic issues from the top, and we need to stop doing that. But here we are still. You will see First Nations people elevating their voices, but still continuing to celebrate their culture. And I think that just really draws back and reminds us that, the strength and resilience from all of us all, and really appreciate the space that we're in. And it does come back to you know what, we're still living, we're still here. Let's keep going. Let's keep fighting.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that moment in time is definitely going to be looked back on, and the right people will be elevated. For me, as an outsider, I was extremely happy to see true representation of a First Nations person in Parliament. And I feel like for the first time we're hearing the voices that have been speaking, but given a platform where they can't be ignored. Climate Fridays, like we said, is a discussion about environmentalism, especially around ensuring clean and safe water in the NT. But another weird thing that kind of happened this year, well, actually a lot of weird things happened this year. Trump, so as we know, as of like this week for sure, Trump has lost the election, Joe Biden's in. It's feels like there's somewhat, or maybe this might be a very hopeful way of looking at it, but we're seeing a turnaround from hypocrisy, turning back into reality, fact. Another thing that happened this week, Pauline Hanson of One Nation helped vote on a bill to stop radioactive waste being dumped in South Australia. Did not expect that.
Did not expect that.
It's a bit of a weird time, but I wanted to find out from all of you, like, what's been going on in your world, like what is happening as we head out of 2020, and what should we be keeping our eyes and ears out for?
Well, I think, for me, what you just brought up about, Trump and Biden, and sort of like really now the shift in, seeing that there could be real change. I think that is now a responsibility on us here to make sure that those MPs that said that they were going to do things, we make sure and hold them accountable for it, because it just doesn't stop here. We've still got corporations trying to backdoor and, get through and really support, a gaslight recovery in this country. They think it's a transition fuel, but no, thank you. We still need to ensure renewable and clean, clean jobs. And, we need to make sure that we're still supporting, First Nations people on the ground and, making sure that they're leading their spaces. And so for me, like, the plethora of things that have happened this year. Wow. I think I'm just, excited that it's the end of the year. But we have a red hot minute break, but, I'm keen to get back and fight. A lot has happened, and now we're going to ensure that we keep fighting and, standing in solidarity with, the allies that Seed Mob have really created over the last 6 months. Definitely, we want to make sure that we're, standing hand in hand with those organizations, businesses, people, and making sure that we are having a safe future for all, a clean future for all.
Yeah. And you're a part of School Striker for Climate, who were behind one of the biggest movements, I think, for environmentalism that we've seen in this country for a while. How has it been going from being a part of this movement that had thousands of people in the streets to having to spend a year basically going to school and living your life at home?
It's been tough, definitely. We rely a lot on traditional ways of activism, I guess. We love to turn up in the streets. We love, walking through the streets with our megaphones and signs. It's just the energy is the best when we're all together. But obviously, we've had to make things a little bit more COVID safe this year. We've taken our activism online, I guess, and it's been tough, but it's just opened up a whole new avenue of change, I guess, where we learn to put pressure on politicians through phone jams, through email jams, and we've realized this year that the people who want to turn up, they will turn up, and we've seen that in big numbers. On September 25th, we had people join our insane National Day of Action live stream, where we targeted politicians to tell them to fund our future, not gas, and COVID hasn't stopped us. We've still had an awesome year of activism, and we look forward to getting back out in the streets.
Fantastic. Benny, I wanted to talk to you a bit, because a lot of the times when, especially in media, when it comes to representation, for a lot of people in colour, let alone First Nations, it's always the artists that tend to take the seat or have to be talking on behalf of several nations. This year we saw that with Ziggy Ramo and his amazing speech on Q&A. But how, as an artist, do you feel that there's a pressure on you to always talk about these things, or do you feel that you have the advantage of performing to larger crowds and kind of bringing people into the fold?
Yeah, I probably come from a place where I see a bit of both. There's definitely the pressure. I've been asked on numerous occasions to do radio interviews during really negative times, and that comes with a lot of its own anxieties and stresses. And I've said yes to some, I've said no to some for different reasons, and obviously I can't do anything beneficial in this world unless I'm in as good a place as I can be. So if something's going to be detrimental to my own mental health or health in general or my family, well, that's kind of the first part of the decision for me. But if I know I can go in and say something confidently and actually something informed and come from a place of passion and get that across in that way, then I have no issue with it. Like I said, as long as I'm well informed on it myself, I have no issues talking about it. Or if it's something that is very topical and I think I should know, I'll intentionally go and educate myself as best I can, and then go from there. But look, as far as asking artists to do it, as you said, some artists have really, really large followings. Some are just purely articulate and charismatic, but they also are well informed, so that works really well too. Like,
yeah,
unfortunately, sometimes it comes down to how the message is delivered. It can be the same message delivered by two different people, and sometimes it gets through, sometimes it doesn't. But I have no issue with artists, making an informed statement. Or look, it's totally up for them to go out and say their piece. They're entitled to their opinion like everybody else, and we're going to have people that agree with it, people that disagree with it, and that's some of the joys that we get to face in day-to-day life, isn't it?
Yeah. And I guess as well, like, again, it's NAIDOC week. It's a celebration of always was, always will be. And I think, especially in the media, the things that always get brought forward are a lot of negative things. But I would love it if we could do some First Nations glow-ups for what's been happening this week and bring some points of strength and celebration to the forefront. Was there anybody who had like a exciting news or an amazing story, or even like a point of history or something that we should be aware of in the celebration of our First Nations?
I'll jump in one that's fairly close to home for me. As I mentioned, and this is not me trying to pump up my business or anything, but we've been able to engage two amazing young Aboriginal people in our organisation, grow our team, and had a young man named Ty and a young lady named Tamba, and watching them blossom is just so fulfilling, and it's empowering them to make also a change in their own community as well as watching the people that we work with engage with us, regularly throughout the week. They're all working to upskill themselves or make a positive change in their life. And I'm lucky enough to get to see that now, nearly every day of the week. And, it's outside of probably what a lot of other people do and what I've normally done in the past. But it's been something really fulfilling to watch how hard these people are working in such, in times where there's so much pessimism or it can be very negative. These people are taking the opportunity that's put in front of them and grabbing it with both hands and really running with it. And that's just been so inspiring and so fulfilling for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's actually so amazing. That, like, I love that you shared that, brother. That was so incredible. Like, that's what it's all about. This is what this week is about. It's really like, sharing, stories about these amazing people that may not be people may not know. They might not be a trend, or, they like they're the ones that, at the back doing everything. And this recognition this week is about, for all those hardworking people that don't give up, that keep fighting no matter, the limitations that we have or they have. And I just, that just makes me really right now be really excited that I get to be in community, because, I'm real, not all of us can live and work on your own country. And so to really appreciate the space that we're in, that's what it's all about. And, we really couldn't foresee what 2020 was going to bring us. And always the theme of the year is always decided by the end of the year, the previous year. So I think, always was and always will be just is that reminder to everyone of all the hard work, resilient, strong people in community working for the community. They never work for themselves. They're always working to better community and for the lives of all the other mob around them. And so I just, that just makes me really proud to be here, this conversation and having a good yarn with you all. But yeah, Ange, what about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I think the conversations that we have here are really intellectual. I was actually thinking about what we talked about just now with the Trump and Biden conversation. And sorry, I'm just going off on a tangent here. But I think it's so important to realize that we shouldn't be idolizing Joe Biden now. He is better than Trump, but now that Joe Biden has been elected, we still have to continue to criticize his actions in Parliament, to demand for more change. Because if we just, if we consider Joe Biden as our savior and say, okay, everything's going to get better, that's how we let him get away with stuff, and he might not. He's going to rejoin, he says he's going to rejoin the Paris Agreement. Now we hold him to that. We hold every single politician to what they say, and we always push for more. We can't be complacent, because that's not how we achieve change. Sorry, that's just something I was thinking about.
That is
talking.
That is extremely powerful. And you're on fire. Love having you as a part of Climate Fridays, because you speak with such clarity. I think that is a really excellent point that you bring forward, that the fight always continues and we always need to be engaged. Tish, I might bring it back to you and talk about what things we can be looking forward to with Seed Mob and 2021, leading into 2021. What are some of the big plans that are coming up that people can help support?
Yeah, no. Look, now that we're sort of coming at the end of the year, Seed are still working tirelessly to support the communities on the ground in the NT. And so, as wet season is coming, we really want to make sure that all those communities are safe. We want to make sure that Origin do not start drilling, because when the water comes and floods those spaces, that's polluting their water. So right now, we're working hard in a shift in our campaign that you'll be probably seeing some things in the next month. On that front. But then also Seed are partnering up with 350 Australia, Clients Earth, who are lawyers over in London, and GBK, the Land and Sea Management of the Torres Straits. And we are working together for the Our Islands, Our Home campaign. And so for those who actually don't know what that is where 8 Torres Strait claimants have gone to the United Nations Human Rights Committee and accused the Australian government, for not complying with the Paris Agreement by decreasing their emissions by 1.5 degrees. And it actually just comes back to our campaign about don't frack the NT, because if the government is going to support this gas-led recovery, that's that we are seeing firsthand at the start of not only who it affects, but also it's causing the indirect effects of sea levels rising, and not just here in Australia, but in the Pacific Islands, in the Philippine Islands. It's a global impact. So there's a few things happening. So you'll probably see a little bit more things on socials in the next month. But we do have our petitions and all of our actions all on our links and on our sites. So if you are tuning in, definitely make sure if you would love to support us, go jump online, sign your name, and let's stand together in solidarity.
That's right. Your website is seedmob.org.au, and you can find out the story behind Seed, the campaigns that are going, ways to take action, support services, contact, and also see a really beautiful film called Water is Life, which Seed Mob has opened my eyes to. This has been an amazing journey. Also, shout out to Ange for School Strike for Climate and bringing up that point that Australia has a lot of agreements that they need to hold strong to, and that the fight doesn't stop, even though old people out, and we've got a new system coming in, at least from over in the States. And are there things that you're looking forward to for School Strike for Climate at the end of 2020 going into 2021?
We've been doing a lot of organising around the budget right now, because the federal budget obviously had a lot of money allocated for national gas projects, which we aren't very happy about. So we're looking to target the federal government on that. We're planning for our next day of action. The date hasn't been decided yet, but hopefully soon, and let's see if it's back in the streets. Fingers crossed. And yeah, we've still, as working with First Nations people, we're working with Seed Mob. Super excited to follow the Our Islands, Our Home campaign, and finishing the year off strong on a good note.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Anne Sharma from School Striker for Climate, thank you so much for joining us yet again in season 3 for Climate Fridays and bringing your amazing wisdom. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
I love soon.
Also, thank you so much to Tish King from Seed Mob, always bringing her fire, her energy, her light and life to Climate Fridays. As I've said, I'm obsessed with you. I love everything that you do, and I love your conversations.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, Brother Benny.
See you, sis. Take care.
To take things out, it's a pleasure to enjoy one more song from Benny Walker. Thank you, Benny, as well, for being a part of the discussion. This is a really important week of celebration for First Nations artists, and I appreciate the stories that you have to share and also the work that you're doing in community and for the Australian music scene. I cannot wait to hear your last song that we're going to hear tonight. And like I said before, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it because Climate Fridays is the best place to be.
And it's Black Friday as well. So thank you so much, and that's so nice seeing you, Ketch. I think hopefully sooner get through all this and start touring and see you around the traps and all that sort of stuff. And
yes,
thanks so much for having me on too to you guys. And it's such a nice thing to be a part of, and thank you so much. If you'll just let me grab a quick drink off the screen. All right. Dina, we're talking about, being at home and talking about land, and always was, always will be. This is a song that's taken on a bit of a different meaning over the last 8 months or so. It's a song called We're Home. Travel down this road again, come with me, my old friend. In a world that's filled with fright, we move towards the light. Forget our troubles past, we're moving forward fast. And if we change our minds, we'll still have loads of time. Although the times may change, we'll still remain the same. No matter the place, or the time and space, we've seen it, so feed it, we're home. Heat it, repeat it, we're home. So as the time goes by, you see we got it right. Although we've had our doubts, I knew we'd work it out. Though the times may change, time and space. We've seen it, so feel it, we're home. Heat it, repeat it, we're home. We've seen it, so feel it, we're home. Heat it, repeat it, we're home. We've seen it, so feel it, we're home. Thank you very much.
Yes, I love my job. I love this. Thank you so much, Benny Walker. I really appreciate you joining us for Climate Fridays and being part of such an important discussion that we have here on the platform. And to everyone that is tuning in, thank you so much for joining us yet again for Climate Fridays, brought to you by Green Music Australia and School Striker for Climate, and supported by Seed Mob and the Australian music scene. Seed Mob you can get access to through seedmob.org.au or Seed Mob on Instagram. Benny Walker is also on Instagram and has an amazing album out called Chosen Lines. You should definitely check it out. It's one of my favorite albums of yours, actually, Benny, and I can say that because I've known him for almost a decade now. And I also want to say, as a part of NAIDOC Week, not only should we as colonizers of this country be educating ourselves, supporting our First Nations people through allyship, we should also be buying through Black businesses and supporting Black artists like Benny Walker and the amazing First Nation artists that are absolutely killing it across our music scene. If you care about this country and the longevity of this land for the generations to come, you should tell people to check out this space. Climate Fridays is about empowering you and giving you knowledge about the ways in which we can stop fracking from happening in the NT, but also environmental movements that you can be a part of to help make the government look at this country with care and custodianship instead of what it's currently doing. We're going to be back here next week for Climate Fridays. It's going to be a different host, but the same amount of fire. We'll catch you back here in a week's time. Until then, have a lovely one and stay strong.